Make sure you stick around for the end of the video today. Alex will go over some changes to our Patreon subscriptions that will affect those already supporting us or thinking about supporting us in that way. But first, the planking process gets going again, and Jack comes back to the boathouse. And then Jack will give us a tour of his timber company back at his home in Maine.
So what we've done in the past with two of us, which worked pretty well, is I'm gonna go touch up that chainsaw.
Okay.
And then I'll throw them in, cut them, put them off to the side. You can grab them and run them through the jig. And then we can set up another pair of sawhorses over here. And when you're done with these, you can put them on the sawhorses. When I'm done cutting the scarce, I'll grab the hand plane and jump in.
Okay.
And then put them on, and we can just keep working around each other. And as soon as you're done with them all, you can grab another hand plane and jump in, and we can work on from there. We've also got the belt sander we can use too.
Cool.
Questions, comments, concerns? Cool.
Gonna get to our sawhorses and then get going.
Wow, that's the first plank we've glued up in a while. Thought those went well. This stock is really nice.
probably best if we did the stern first, because I gotta steal a clamp from the tip. That tip.
I think what I want to do, I'm open to suggestions if you say something I'm not seeing. But if we start with riveting this bilge stringer in the middle,
Yep.
then we can start to put the stem and the stern bilge stringer on. And I wonder if we just undo a couple of your clamps and clamp the stringer in with the plank and just skip the whole steel bolt thing and just go right to fastening through it all.
Sure.
Your straps can stay, and all we'll have to do is pop off. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 forward clamps and throw the stringer in there. We could also fasten the very stem and into the sawn frames, and then that'll keep your plank there too. It'll be less clamps, so you have to undo that way.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. Sure.
But we can do stern first or stem first. But I think we should start by getting this stringer put in.
Right here.
How does that sound? If you can't tell with the racket behind me, Jack's working on the next plank. We got the one on starboard here, mostly fastened. There's a couple frames in the stem and stern where we're going to put the next bilge stringer in and fasten through those. But other than that, it's all good to go. We got the second layer of bilge stringer in. So I'm working on getting the third layer laid in, and I got to go through and nail the scarves down on the bilge stringers, clean up some dolphinite, screw in the bronze straps to the new plank that we added, and we'll be able to add on the next layer of bilge stringer. Carolyn will be back in the next hour or so, and then Wes, who's our last part of the planking crew, will be here sometime tonight. Jack's going to take off for the weekend, but he'll be back next week. So we've got a good rotating crew, so no one has to be here for too terribly long, and everyone gets to work for 4 or 5 days and take a couple days off and come back and work for some more. So it's great to have a fresh and psyched crew. We've been motoring right along, and hopefully we'll get these gaps closed up and be able to get onto the interior. What are you yammering about over there?
I'll take you back when you're ready.
All right, do I have time to drive one more now?
Go for it.
All right.
Nice.
Nope. It's because I was watching. Gotta love copper.
That is its major downfall.
Okay, we're on. Okay, can you go forward? Come. A little more. Tiny bit more. Oh, back towards you. Oh, right there. Don't move.
Oh, yes.
All right, so that's the trick. We gotta put it up on top of the stairs first.
Go.
This one's looking good.
It's looking real good.
Real good. Take a look at the backing out. Might be a couple spots to hit it more, but
I think that is going to be the biggest thing.
pretty fly. All those people who said cedar would be easier than oak, they lied!
You know, I'll stand by, like, creamy, dreamy cedar is pretty good. And I'd probably rather do that, but this boat's got some twist and some difficulties.
Got the scarves nailed. All we're using are these copper slating nails. Nothing too magical. With the bilge stringers being stacked on top of each other, we're not too worried about the nails coming out because they can't go up and out. There'll be one above them. And with having them sandwiched in really well, it keeps the hook scarves from going anywhere either. So really, they're just kind of help align things and make sure they stay put. We're also going to use them to fasten into the sawn frames in the very stem and stern. So these are screwed from the outside, and we'll just put a couple of this copper nails through the face here into the sawn frames. And these ends we're leaving a little kind of wild and ragged right now, but we'll clean those up and make them look more pretty later. Don't worry. Alright. Cool. So jump in the stern and do the same thing back there. And then I've got a couple steel bolts to push back in the stern, a couple clamps to take up here. And we'll be able to start fitting the next layer of build stringer. And if you can't tell by all the noise in the background, Carolyn got here and her and Jack are working on the plank while I'm working on getting the next round of build stringer ready. These are all fitting together really well so far. I'm gonna have to jump up here and put a few fasteners in, and then I'll be able to move these big C's farther down. Because right now they are the only thing we have that is deep enough both ways to be able to reach in and grab these. And that's a big part of the reason we're trying to put the build stringers on as we build up. And it's kind of nice having this big hole in the planking, because it allows us to put these through and clamp them. If you're real astute, you'll notice that we have a rivet here that we never put a rove on, and that's because the rove was going to end up overhanging a little bit. So we just put the rivet in, and we'll rove this one when we do its neighbors, and that way the rove will overhang the planks and it won't affect the fitting. This is looking really, really good. I got to go check a couple more things. I'm going to look at the bronze strapping, make sure, pop a couple screws in there so that as we go up, we'll lose access to it. And double check, but I think the second layer of build stringer is about ready to be fastened as soon as I can steal one of them from planking. So these little screws, I like to put them in by hand because they're really small, and stripping the heads out or just wringing them off is fairly easy to do. And the difference between them being tight and starting to squeeze the dolphinite out and the heads breaking off is like half a turn. So I just, it's slower, but I've got a lot more control doing it by hand. And the idea with all of these is, I know we keep calling them diagonal strapping, but they don't function really as diagonal strapping you would think in like a square structure. What they really do is keep these planks from moving fore and aft with each other. So if you can imagine, if this plank wants to slide on this plank, it has to move all of these screws in the strap. And with the strap being firmly screwed down to the oak planking, it's not going to want to let it do that. And that's really what this diagonal strapping is about, is to help keep those frames from moving fore and aft, which our build stringers will also help with as well. Go a long way towards keeping the boat stiff, and if in a really big seaway, it'll go a long way towards keeping those planks from moving and doing what boats call spitting out their cotton, which is exactly what happens. When you hear of a boat in a storm and they say that she was spitting out her cotton, it means that she was moving and rolling and the boat was twisting, and it was making those planks slide just tiny, tiny bits along each other, and that was getting that cotton to move and work out of there. And these bronze straps should go a long way towards that. So we got a few more screws to put in, and we'll see how the guys are doing. Well, see how the folks are doing on the other side, Carolyn and Jack.
My name's Jack McAuliffe. I have a company called Dara Forestry and Maritime Timber. It is a forestry business and a sawmill with the purpose of finding timber that fits the more difficult industries like shipbuilders, timber framers, crook builders, anyone looking for natural curves, compass timbers, knees, and the specific woods required for them. I met Steve and Alex probably 5 years ago. When I met them, I got to watch their process from the very beginning, and part of that was sourcing wood, cutting wood, and making sure they had everything they had to build their boat, which was a lot of oak and cedar and things that I think other projects had struggled to find. And even I remember working as a shipwright on Cape Cod, the trouble in sourcing the proper and quality timber that's needed for boat building. And they were lucky enough to harvest a lot of their wood on site from their farm, sustainably harvest. None of it was clear cut or any of the horror stories you hear from logging. Most people aren't so lucky, and they were getting a lot of requests to sell their excess wood, particularly the knees they were making, curved timbers, large pieces. And I realized that those were things that I also had access to, and I had access to them for a much more reasonable price than even other sawmills could get them, because I was cutting them and I was getting paid to cut them in some cases. So it just made sense to make the leap to go full circle, where now I will manage woodlots or do small selective cutting or come in and advise people on what to cut on their land, take what I need for my business, and now I can produce a timber, and I can also make cuts, the type of cuts and the quality of cuts that boat builders need, that I think a lot of other sawyers don't understand or even don't have time to do. In this day and age, I think production drives logging, forestry, and sawmills, and boat building, wooden boat building, and a lot of traditional crafts are not about production. They're about the quality of finish, the quality of materials, and the sustainability. Wooden boats can last a lifetime if they're maintained. The same with timber frame houses, the same, any of these traditional things. You see plenty of 400-year-old barns all across New England. And it would be nice if we as a society would return to these crafts and these ideals if we want to preserve the planet in the future. Over the last couple of years, I've been growing, and my process begins with cutting trees. I have 5 acres to cut on, and I'm looking to expand that and expand into other woodlots. Take those trees, they come to my landing. I make a selection of what I'm cutting, whether it's for a client, for stock to have on hand, or even for myself or my community. I pull the logs off the landing with my machine. It is a Bombardier SW48 modified for forestry. It's a track skidder with hydraulic cable winch, and for everything I need around the sawmill, it gets the job done. I take logs, I drag them over to the mill, and they are pushed onto the loaders of the mill. The mill is hydraulically driven, so it can load logs, turn logs, level logs, and do just about everything. And for a 30-year-old mill, it hasn't slowed down a bit. So once I get the logs on the mill, I line everything up, I make my cuts, I decide what I'm doing, and then with a horizontal bandsaw and a single mast, I'm able to cut more crooked and curved pieces that other sawmills can't. Circ saws and circular mills in particular are going to have a harder time because of the way logs lay on a track. So I can take crooks and cut them out and have them sit a little bit better and a little more safe too, which is nice at the end of the day. So I make my cuts, slash goes off and is either chipped and turned into mulch and brought right back into the earth, or burned in a bonfire if I'm having a good time with my friends. And the timber is then taken off the mill. It's brought over to where I store my lumber, and it is laid out, stickered properly, stacked properly, and left to air dry until it's either taken by the client or is needed for some other project. In boat building, you're putting a lot of wood under a lot of stress. And actually the construction of boats are so strong because you have compression and you have tension from all directions, locking everything together. So when people come to me and they're like, I need futtock stock, I need knee stock, I need a keelson, it has to be free of heart, the grain has to line up, I want to emphasize the bell or the flare, it's a no-brainer to me. Oh, of course, I can look at the design, I can look at the piece. There doesn't need to be a dialogue of emphasizing curve or removing or what's waste, what's not. And I think that a lot of sawyers are cutting for people who don't have those requirements, so it's sort of an oddity. It's also probably an annoyance for a lot of guys. And, you know, I think that I'm lucky to work with shipwrights, and shipwrights are lucky to work with me because I want to see them build these boats. I want to see them get built, be preserved, be restored, as well as, you know, at the end of the day, I get to pick from my own pile. I get to work on my own boats. I get to build my own boats here. And I get to keep doing what I'm passionate about while also promoting and continuing this important craft that if our generation doesn't keep doing, it's gonna see a die-off.
Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. We really appreciate the support. We wanted to say that we have changed our Patreon tiers to reflect things a little bit more clearly. We made a change from per creation to monthly, and thank you so much to all the people that have adjusted their tiers to reflect what they were donating monthly before. Right now, it makes it much more easy for people to know exactly what they're donating. It's just one number per month as opposed to figuring out how many videos there are going to be. So thank you all for doing that. And if you haven't adjusted your tiers, I invite you to go and check out what we're offering now. At the $15 level, we are going to be offering an archive of all of our live Q&As that are moving forward. And as of right now, there's already 5 hours of live Q&A videos on there. And at the $20 or more level, you'll actually get to participate in those. So at $20, you get to have a one-time invite to a live Q&A, and you can ask us whatever you want about what is going on in the build at the moment or even in the past. And at higher levels, you can even do that every month. So those videos will then be archived for the lower tiers to be able to watch whenever they want, and those are available to those Patreon supporters. And we don't get to say this very often, but thank you so much for the support on Patreon. The reliable income really allows us to plan for the immediate and long-term future for Arabella. It allows us to make these videos and work full-time and have people like Anne doing the Q&As and Ben making the videos so that we're free to work on the boat and fulfill merchandise orders and, you know, plan ahead for everything that is coming. If you need a little bit of help trying to figure out how that works, we do have a help page that we have done for Patreon, for our Patreon on our website, and we'll have that linked in the description below. And if you can't support us financially, no worries. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you all. The community that has grown around us here has really been inspirational, and we can basically feel the enthusiasm through the comments on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for supporting this. We really, really appreciate it, and we'll see you next Friday.